Ravens flock, welcome in to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. Another Tuesday night with yours truly, James Haskell, my co-host Glenn Martin. We are excited to get into some Ravens news. I tell you what, Glenn, Eric DeCosta was not kidding when he talked about exercising patience, and I think the Ravens fans are about exercising as much as they can, and it's growing really thin. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to talk about the free agency outlook. Obviously, we're going to respond to you guys as you continue to provide your input to the show. And we're going to get into some preliminary stuff with the draft. We still got a month. Glenn and I are just digging in, peeling the onion back a little bit. So we want to give you guys some names to look at, some things to chew on as far as, your scouting that you do at home, some things to be excited about, some players to be excited about, etc. But before we get into all that, while you're tuning in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, everywhere else, and yeah, let's get into it. So, Glenn, Sammy Watkins left today.
Yeah, he left. Yep,
and he's off to Indy tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot of people said if he left, he's not signing. So, when you saw him leaving, is that the conclusion you came to, that there's no chance he's going to be a Raven?
I surely think we're going to be outbid by the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah.
Okay, so because they definitely have the cap space for it, and they have a need at wide receiver as well, with Ty looking like he's on his way out, and they did just trade for Carson Wentz, and they need to supply him with some weapons. But you see, there's a question: which Latin country are you from?
Somebody asked me that.
Yeah, that's in the comments.
Nice. The good old US of A, ladies and gentlemen. Where I don't even see this.
That's right.
Oh, James, which Latin? Hey, I'll take that as a compliment. Good old US of A, baby.
That's right. But so you think that? I mean, it could have been just a case, obviously, of him just wanting to, cross all his T's and dot all his I's, and make sure he at least accepts visits to a couple different guys. I know he's going to the Colts. Is that his last scheduled visit? Have you heard any other visits?
I haven't heard of any other visits. So it's definitely going to be interesting, but yeah, I haven't heard of any other visits as far as it goes with Sammy Watkins thus far.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I mean, look, would I be devastated if he doesn't sign? No, I wouldn't. It would, because he would be it'd be nice to add a vet to the room. We've talked a lot. We don't want Hollywood to be the oldest guy in the room. But at the same time, it's not like I'm expecting him to come in and change our fortunes and make us a Super Bowl contender, or get us over that hump in the playoffs. I don't look at him that way. I think it'd be a nice piece. And if he's healthy, he adds something. But yeah, it wouldn't break my heart if he doesn't end up staying here. But, I'd rather see him than nobody. At just 27 years old, I feel like if they can keep him healthy, I know it's a big if, because as we mentioned, we looked up his injury predictor, and according to the website we were using, his prediction was 96% chance he would miss some games. Yeah. So there's really no doubting that he's going to get hurt. It's just, can we count on him when we need him most? Because as we mentioned in that video we did about Sammy, he's had some big playoff games and even a big Super Bowl game in their first Super Bowl, the Chiefs' first Super Bowl, I believe. So he's had some big games when they count. And if the Ravens could get him healthy in the playoffs, then maybe he could help. What do you think?
Yeah. So Glenn, I was thinking about this all day, and one thing I'm really quickly going to say that, not to say off the top of here, but I've worked really hard on my accent, my lack thereof. So shout out to Luis Cubias for saying I have no accent. That's awesome. Thank you very much. You're making me blush here. Okay. So I worked extremely hard at that. But one of the things that I will say is that I've thought about this all day, Glenn, and I'm here to tell you and all of our viewers this right now. Last week, I said that my number one priority offensively, my need is to continue to improve the offensive line. My want would be wide receiver. I'm sure you remember that conversation that you and I had. Mm-hmm. I'm going to double down and go even further. I'm done with holding on for a guy to come in and save the day. Number one, there's no one out there that can do it. that we're gonna get, that we're gonna make a move for on the free agency market. AB, anyway, whoever you want to name, and whatever sort of Madden type trade you want to come up with, it's not happening. Number one. Number two, I'm a believer, and you can say whatever you want about me and that I'm biased, but I'm riding with my guys. All right. I'm riding with the fact that Hollywood Brown is going to get better this year. I'm banking on Duvernay making a big jump with a true offseason, another year in the system. I'm banking on Prochet making a contribution. I'm banking on Miles doing something.
I'm not banking on Miles to do anything.
But those three guys, I really think that just with an improvement, with a significant improvement in Hollywood's game, a significant improvement in Duvernay's game, with the passing coach that we're bringing in, and this is the only thing I see happening, is a draft of a young guy early in the draft at wide receiver. But I'm done with the free agency thing. I'm not going to hold on anymore. I'm going to go with the guys we got, and I'm going to have faith and confidence that they're out there doing the best that they can to be the best unit that they can be next year, and not waiting on somebody else to come in. And I'm all right with it. If the front office is all right with it, if John is all right with it, if the coaching staff is all right with it, then dang it, I'm riding with them, Glenn. I'm riding with them. Now, my comments, strictly wide receivers. I'm not talking about tight ends, but strictly wide receivers, right? That's as far as I'll go. I'm all right with my guys.
Oh, and I think the good thing is that they did, the fact that they didn't take a big swing at one of these wide receivers out there, which I think a lot of people expected. Some were hoping we would, but I think what it does is it kind of encourages me, because we went over how there's not many roster spots, and I want them to attack the draft. I want them to find their number one in the draft, and stop, paying guys all this money, after they've already proved that, because then you got to pay them $18 million a year. Like everybody was upset we didn't get Galladay, but how could the Ravens have possibly afforded $18 million annually? When you looked at the cap hit in 2022 and 2023, it was over 20 million. It was like 22 and $23 million cap hits. That's just not possible with the contracts that are right around the corner. So I'm excited that because to me, it tells me they're going to take a high shot at a big time receiver, and they're hoping to find their one of the future in the draft, which is the way you have to do it, especially going forward when these contracts are going to go crazy and you're having to pay your quarterback $40 million. So I'm encouraged, but the good thing is, if they sign a Sammy Watkins, he's not the type of guy that would preclude you from drafting a receiver. He just adds some veteran leadership. Although he's only 27 years old, it's not like you're bringing in a 30-year-old, but still he has done. He's played in 86, I believe it is, career games in the NFL. He's done it. So it would be nice to add some veteran leadership, but I'm okay with them not going after any of the tier one guys, because I'm hopeful. And I know I don't want to get into too much of it now, because I'm still pretty early in the process, but I will say that I believe, how many did I look at, Jimbo?
Let's see. We got on our like preliminary list. What we got? 5.
Yeah, I looked at 5 receivers so far, and I looked at a bunch of games. Let's see, for Tylan Wallace, for example, I looked at all the West Virginia game, the Oklahoma game, Texas Tech game, and a Texas game from 2019, as well as some highlights. So, and that's pretty much how it is, like 4 or 5 games so far with some highlights. If they played in the Senior Bowl, I watched the Senior Bowl one-on-ones from practice that they ran against the corners. And I'll be honest, man, I think I see some guys in college that have a chance to develop into that number one we're talking about. And I know that mocks aren't, guarantees or anything like that, but judging by all the different mocks that I've been looking at, they're going to have a shot at some of these guys. I get that they're not going to have a shot at the Waddell, or they're not going to have a shot at Smith. They're not going to have a shot at the top 3 guys, but they're still. I didn't look at those 3 guys yet, because I don't think they have any chance at them. But the 5 guys I looked at, I think I could see 2 of them being perfect for what the Ravens need. So yeah, I'm excited about the draft. I know it's still a ways away, and I'd like to see them add some veteran pass catcher to the lineup. But I'm also encouraged the fact that I think they're going to attack it in the draft. But I think Rafari brings up – I'm glad he did this, because a lot of people have been bringing this up, Jimmy, and we haven't touched much on it. But Rafari Cooper says, I think we're going to trade for Allen Robinson or DJ Chark. Now, I think a trade is possible. The reason I don't think it's for a guy like Allen Robinson,
It's
or
an
even
$18 million cap hit.
and that's this year. And then if you're going to give up capital to get him, you're not bringing him in for 1 year. You're going to have to then sign him to a monster contract. So I don't think it's him. And the same goes for DJ Chark, because if I'm remembering correctly, he's in his 5th year, which is it's an expensive year. And again, if you're going to give up capital to get him, you got to sign him long term, or it doesn't make sense to give up a pick or Orlando Brown. So I do think that it's possible there could be a trade in the works. We've seen the Ravens bring in players like Anquan Bolden in the past, and they did that via trade. So I think it's possible. I don't think it's going to be for a guy like Robinson or DJ Chark.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Robinson's $18 million cap hit. DJ Chark. This is what I'll say. DJ Chark, and you kind of went into this point as well. I don't think we're going to trade for any 4-year guys at this point.
Right.
4-year. He's going his 4th year, to where, like you said, not only do we have to sign him, we have to give him monster money in the coming years with all the upcoming deals and guys that we're looking to retain. The Ravens will prefer to retain their talent 9 times out of 10 than bring in talent and pay that talent. It's just it's a proven to be more sustainable model for the Ravens, something they're more comfortable with, something that apparently they're better at, right? Considering how well they draft.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought up a trade, Glenn. So I made my point, and I feel very strongly about my point.
Okay.
And the one thing I'll say is I am a strong believer and take a lot of confidence in these new coaches that we've brought in to develop the wide receivers. I'm not saying I'm counting on Roman. I'm saying that I'm counting on these guys to do it, and I'm counting on these players. Think about a jump from year 1 to year 2, right? Mm-hmm. And then from year 1 to year 2, when you didn't even have training camp, nothing, right. No preseason stuff. No preseason stuff beforehand, right? So I think that those 2 guys that we drafted last year in Prochet and Duvernay are going to make big jumps. But I want to get to the point really quick about the trade. And before I do, Glenn, you're gonna have to repeat his name. I didn't even. Is it Rafari Cooper? Is that what you said?
That's what I said. Yeah,
dude, you got it. You nailed it, baby.
I'm glad that I gave him the respect of pronouncing his name right. Yes,
I have to mention this as well. This is really cool, Rafari. You made me think of this. Only that we're back up on the pod, right? Mm-hmm. So you guys can listen to us, and then you guys can obviously hear us on YouTube. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can catch us. All the stuff that's on YouTube is ripped and put into a podcast. So I'm saying that because Glenn and I started that way, and we've gone to YouTube, and now we're doing both. And the cool thing is, Glenn, is I was looking at where our viewers, our listeners are coming from for the pod, right? Mm-hmm. We picked up some people in Japan, in East Africa. We got our first group of listeners in Finland, India, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, the whole board it's like playing Risk. The whole board is just lighting up. But anyway, so I thought it was pretty cool. I figured I'd let you know that.
Yeah,
and shout out to all you guys for tuning in wherever you guys are at. But the one thing I want to say is this. I think that whatever it was that Eric DeCosta came to Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell about in order to take less money was not a small thing, right? Like, I think you have to have something in mind to say, that's going to move the needle for them to take less money. And I think that it could be possible that it could be a move. And you could say our tight end room is crowded, but it could be a move for a guy like a Zach Ertz. Mm-hmm. Or we've talked about Zach a lot. I know that we just traded for a guy, but he's on a conditional pick, so if we don't like him, you know what I mean? And then I know that we signed Tomlinson, didn't make a large financial commitment to him. And then the other thing, too, is that even if we bring in Ertz, we got all these tight ends, but last year when Boyle went down, that room got real thin really fast. Mm-hmm. And so, they might have these guys as insurance. So what is your thought on that, on the idea of making a trade for Ertz? And that was the reason they wanted to clear up a little room.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. At first, when I saw the trade for Oliver, when we traded for Oliver, bringing him in, made him the 4th tight end in the league, it made me think, well, maybe they aren't in the Ertz game. But then I kind of thought about it again, and I think maybe they looked at that as like a way to kind of bargain with Philly and saying, look, maybe Philly was driving a hard bargain. They were saying, we want this, and the Ravens weren't willing to match it. Maybe they went out and got Oliver saying, look, we don't need Zach Ertz. We're high on this young kid. He's 25. He's got a high ceiling. He's an athlete. He fits well with our scheme. Maybe we can maybe we're fine with him. And maybe they just use that to get them to lower their offer a little bit in Philly. So I don't think it necessarily means we're out of it.
Right.
Out of the Ertz deal. But yeah.
And it's a good plan B to have, right? Like if Ertz doesn't work out, like you said, you don't need him. We still got these guys, right? We got something to stand on that we can sell the team on, the fans on, the coaching staff on. We can at least feel good with what we got, right?
And if they get Ertz, then they can just cut Oliver and recoup the 7th round conditional that they would have given up had he made the roster. So
yeah, or let him go through camp and decide whether they want Oliver or Tomlinson, right? You know what I mean? They still have options. Right,
absolutely. Now, that's another good point that and the commenters are bringing up. I want to give them a little bit of credit. Let's see. I think it was E No Neck said it first, and a couple other guys. Gray Red Star said it as well. If the Philly isn't able to make a trade, of course, that they're expected to cut Zach Ertz, which would make a lot of sense from the Ravens as far as getting that cap number down, because it's expected that if he is cut, that he'll settle for a lesser contract elsewhere, because he'll still be getting paid from the Eagles in one form or another. But that also opens him up to a bidding war with other teams that could be looking to add a good tight end like him. So are you hopeful that, would you be in favor of the Ravens giving some draft capital their way and absorbing maybe a larger hit, but then guaranteeing he ends up in Baltimore? Or are you fine with them cutting him and then you could end up in a bidding war with another team that's tight end needy?
Yeah, so I think that so this is how I answer that question. If the deal gets done, it's going to be via trade. Like all the commenters have been saying, we are absolutely cognizant of the fact that he is quote unquote about ready to cut. He's been about ready to get cut for the past 2 months. Just FYI. But that's been all over the news. So I really think they're trying to work something out.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna get outbid. This is what it really comes down to me at the end of the day. If shout out to Luis. Muchas gracias.
He loves showing that off, doesn't he? My God, he worked hard for it, so I'll let him do it. It's like showing off abs. If you work that hard, you got a 6-pack. I ain't mad at you.
Show it off, baby.
That's right.
Great. That's awesome. So one of the things I want to say though is if he hits the open market, we're not going to get him. It's only going to be via trade because we're going to get outbid, just like we do 9 times out of 10. But this, I'll say, Glenn, it really comes down to whether or not Zach wants to come here, in my opinion. Even if it's a trade, I think that the Eagles will work with him enough to say, look, we got an offer from Baltimore. You know what I mean? As long as there's more than one option on the table, I think they're working with him, right? Like it's not a one-way street. And so do you think, you saw what happened with Juju, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit, who's dead to me, Juju Smith-Schuster, not literally, but I never want you to wear a Ravens uniform. Take your Corvette dancing, green hair having, tug of war.
You sound like a scorned lover.
No, just go, get out, go play for your little Steelers who are going to be 2-14 next year.
Okay.
Anyway, my point is this: do you think so? Juju obviously didn't want to play here. Right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. Do you think that Zach wants to play here?
Actually, I don't even know if it's that fair.
Right.
To say that. I just think Juju didn't want to leave home. You know how it is when people get comfortable at their place of work and they won't even leave, even if another offer that is obviously better and better financially, better, they won't leave because they're in a rut. They're in their comfort zone. I mean, let's not forget that Juju didn't just turn down the Ravens. He turned down the Kansas City Chiefs as well. He turned down a multi-year deal from the Philadelphia Eagles and decided to take the smallest of the offers to stay home where he felt comfortable. So yeah, look, I was not. I was a little hurt, especially when I saw Marlon Humphrey tweeted at him something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing that, hey, why didn't you hit me back on my DMs? Why'd you ignore me or something like that? And he said, good luck, And he said, hey, and Juju tweeted back to him saying, hey, sorry about that. I was, had your teammates and coaches talking to me throughout. I love and respect the organization, but, see you next year pretty much. So it does hurt to know that multiple players, apparently including Lamar, were trying to get him to come here. That hurts a little bit. But when you sit back and realize he didn't just turn down if it wasn't just like it was Ravens versus Steelers, it was he turned down the Chiefs too. So he
Mhm.
turned down multiple teams. And to me, it just seemed like he was comfortable and didn't want to change the scenery and just wanted to stay home. And let's be honest, $8 million is still, it's not like he's living at the Motel 8. I mean, $8 million
Right.
is still good money. And the rest of the extra money would have been due on incentives and not a
Right.
base salary. So
Now, a lot of people will say, to your argument, to your point, they'll say that it wasn't, and I agree with you on the comfort point, but some people will argue that he took it as a financial decision. So this year, counting numbers wise, the chances are he's going to get the most receptions possible in their system. Ben's going to sling the ball all over the place, especially out of shotgun. The blitz is going to be coming hard, and Ben's going to be chucking it all over the place in 2 seconds, like he was doing last year. So the chance to get the most amount of receptions, and the most action in general, and then hit the market again in the next year, where he'll only be 25 years old, right? And he'll get to hit again when the cap is not only gonna go up, it's gonna rebound and go up, right? So it's gonna be a significant increase from the year, but from last year, not this coming season, but last year. And he'll have an opportunity to hit a market where his value might be inflated, actually, right? So I think there's a little bit of that too. I totally understand what you're saying as well.
But to me,
they're not going to be a winner. That's the thing.
They could be look. I'm not ready to completely write them off yet. But here's what I will. I agree with you. He's going to get more targets and he'd get more catches in Pittsburgh. But I'm not so sure he would get more yards or more touchdowns. I mean, he only had 831 yards, Jimmy, on 128 targets.
Yeah.
On 97 catches, he only averaged 8 yards per reception. I mean, that's not, that's not crazy to me. So I'm sorry. And Marquise Brown on many less targets, only 100 targets. He only was, not even 100 yards shy as far as yardage. So, and he had 8 touchdowns to Juju's 9. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say actually less than 100 yards. Yeah. Juju had 831 yards. Marquise Brown had 769. I mean, so you're only talking about 80 yards of difference, 1 touchdown. Yeah, a lot more catches. But so I would have looked at it like, man, I'm going to get a lot of single coverage in Baltimore. I just think he could have ended up with more yards and more touchdowns while having less targets and less catches.
And be a winner. As far as let's be honest. As much as I don't like the Steelers, I have respect for them. Anyway, so
they're good every year. I mean, it's hard to not.
But they're going the wrong way, is I guess what I'm saying. I don't. They have no back. Ben is 1,000 years old. He's got a plastic arm. Their offensive line is an absolute shambles. I could be their starting running back right now. You know what I mean? They're hurting at running back. But look, a lot of mocks have them getting Najee Harris from Alabama, and then boom, your running back room is instantly fixed. Now they do have Trent
holes.
Richardson.
Yeah, but if you watch him, he's pretty darn good. But I mean,
he's got a lot of hogs in front of him.
Yeah, he does. And they do they have a hole at left tackle. They have a hole at center. I don't know who's playing right tackle for him because Filer, I think, went to San Diego.
Right.
There's a lot of holes there. But I think that defense is still going to be pretty good. And if they can keep Ben healthy, which is a huge if at this point in his career, I still think they're going to compete. And, they've never been worse than 8-8 in Tomlin's time there. And that was when Big Ben was out. So I'm not ready to count them out, although I agree with you. I think they're third place right now in the division. And I think the Browns are given a heck of a push to take over number 1 from Baltimore. But I don't think we touched on Luis.
No, we didn't. Yeah,
comment.
Let's
if you want to,
sorry, dude.
That's all right. We kept taking each other's. If you wanted to read it,
yeah. So, I think this is a great point. This is so Luis just mentioned that if we traded Orlando Brown to the Vikings, would you rather get back Thielen or Daniel? Is it Daniel? I never know. Hunter? Daniil. He's a monster. I know that dude is a monster off the edge. But since those are our biggest needs, I'm going to answer this question. I think that the Ravens, more than anything, want a number 1. They want a first round pick. Is what I think they want. And the easier part about offloading an asset and getting a draft pick is that you don't have to worry about the salary cap lining up, right? But if you had to limit it to just those 2, man, this is a tough one for me. How old is Daniil Hunter?
Actually, I'm looking him up right now because this is one of my favorite players, one of the most underrated guys.
You talk about him a lot. I can't believe I forgot his freaking first name.
He's 28 or 26 and a half. So he is a young man. He missed a lot of games. He missed the whole season actually last year. But other than that, he's been a healthy guy. He's played in all 16 games in the 4 years before and 14 of the 16 in his rookie year. But just a sack machine. Now, the only problem with him is he's already gotten paid. And that's the problem. And that's why the Ravens, I don't think, are in on him, is because they want picks, because picks are cheap, good players. Even first round picks are cheaper than, the Pro Bowlers that hit their second contract. So I think that Danielle Hunter will be great. Now, he is a 4-3 end, and he's not really an outside linebacker. So, I think he would struggle in coverage, but I don't think they would ask him to do much covering here. They would let him do what he does best. But so he's not like an ideal fit, but obviously he's a fantastic pass rusher and the Ravens would take him. But financially, it's too much. And then you're talking about taking on Thielen as well, or either one. I guess either one, still, you're in the same boat as far as it being a monster cap hit. I just think they need to find their stud receiver and stud like future pass rusher in the draft, and they're going to have to find a cheaper vet if they want to bring in any help at either area.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So if I had to pick between one or the other, I'd probably go Danielle based on his age.
Yeah. Yo, my goodness. His upside isn't even close.
Right.
I mean, Danielle's still on his ascent. And I think it's safe to say Thielen is on his way down. Even though I do think he has some ball left in him, he's on his way down. I mean, there's no – how about the idea from of
getting Flacco and Ertz?
Yeah, Ray Eminizer? Yeah, he says, I say we trade for Ertz and Flacco. Of course, Flacco did sign a 1-year deal with the Eagles, so shout out to Joe. I can't believe the guy's still out there trying to,
Glenn, why don't you tell the fans why you think Joe's out there still playing? I think this is hilarious.
He's trying to get away from his kids. He's got too many daggone kids at the house, and he's trying to get out of the house. I mean, he don't want to be stuck in there with them kids all day. He wants to go out and hang out with his boys and all that.
Socialized, stuff. Curse like a sailor, and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of kids, man. They're young too. I mean, that's a little bit of a headache. So. No, I mean, I think he's looking forward to them to hanging out with him a lot more once he hangs it up. But no, I do think that plays a part. But yeah, so shout out to Flacco
and Geno Stone.
Flacco. Oh yeah, Geno's back. He's back. And actually, I did some tape watching on him last year because I admittedly didn't know a lot about him. And he's got some physical limitations. I think he was the only player in the draft that was negative length, which is something you never hear from any athlete. The guy is literally. He's usually every athlete is longer than they are tall, especially in sports like basketball. But certain positions are like pass rush, receiver. They want length. This guy had negative length. You just never see that from athletes. So he has physical limitations. He's not the fastest, but he played a lot of deep cover back at Iowa, if I remember correctly. And he will lay the wood. Now, he had troubles rapping all the time because he wanted to lay someone out. But, yeah, it was kind of cool to see Geno back, but obviously he's not moving the needle, and he's more of a, you got to work your way on the field and special teams and hopefully find some reps on actual defense and continue to develop. But there's no doubt the Ravens were not happy to see him signed off their practice squad or scooped up off waivers by Houston, if I remember right. So it's nice to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you there as well. All right, so let's keep digging in on this before we get over to the draft. Because like Glenn said, like Glenn and I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about that. Let's do a little bit more digging into, maybe a couple more minutes we'll spend on free agency. What are you most concerned at this point? What other moves in your mind have to be done?
Yeah, you got to bring in someone on the edge, even if it's not the ideal guy. I mean, you got to bring in, I feel like you got to bring in someone with some pass rush. I mean, we talked about a bunch of guys. One guy we haven't talked much about, so I'm going to bring him up now. Actually, we might have talked about it on our last live. I'm not sure. Yeah. What about Ryan Kerrigan? Does he give you anything? Does he get you excited? I know me and you. Let me just go over the name because we just did a video about this. We're hyped on Justin Houston.
Yep.
We're intrigued by the possibility of a guy like Jadeveon Clowney because of his the fact that he's an absolute animal against the run, and he does have pass rush ability, although he's never put it together.
Yep.
Let's see, who else was it that we were intrigued by? Was it just those two?
really those two. And then we also talked about the potential of a Melvin Ingram. But we were kind of warm.
Yeah.
We weren't crazy hot on that. So I think those two were our. Oh, and then we talked about Aldon Smith as a wild card,
that's
like a dark horse type scenario.
Yeah, he
right?
doesn't really. Yeah, and again, we know he doesn't really fit from his off the field antics. I don't see him as a Raven, but he does have pass rush, and he was healthy last year. So that's the reason we brought him up, because of his. And he's going to be cheap. Let's be honest. But Bill Seals says, "Do you take a?"
Hey, he's one of our Patrons, so shout out.
Yeah, shout out Bill Seals. And he says, "Do you take the wide receiver or outside linebacker in free agency right now?" I think that's the easiest decision, and it's outside linebacker.
Yep.
I mean, I know I said this a bunch of times, and the people who are here often are tired of probably hearing about it, but this right now, the receiving core is still better than it was in 2019 when Lamar led the league in passing touchdowns. Right now, put Deion Kane as your fifth. Put Ben Victor as your sixth, and let's go play ball. And they're better than they were in 19 when he led the league in touchdown passes. So it's not vital. It's not of the utmost importance. It'd be nice. And I think that there's some packages that would be really nice, but there's still hope that some of these young guys can get a little bit better and a little more confident beating one-on-one coverage. And we'll see what happens there. But I think there's no doubt if you can't rush the passer, it don't matter how good your secondary is, which we got a really good one. But if you have 8 seconds, you can't guard these receivers in the NFL for 8 seconds. You just can't do it.
Yeah, for not even just how good they are. The rules are meant for defenses to lose. Like you're fighting a losing war. And so asking a guy to do that for 5, 4 seconds, however long, it's too long.
Can't do it.
You're putting too much on their plate. It is literally impossible based on the rules and the talent that you're playing against, period.
Yeah, so I think it's a no-brainer. It's outside linebacker. No doubt about it. I mean, I would like to see a vet in the room somewhere, but it's not, like we said, they've shown that they can get it done without it. So I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I agree. I would take outside linebacker. I also think, you can go through the list, but and I know that he's injury prone, but Clowney is still the 5th best available free agent on the market. According to PFF, of the top 100, I don't remember there being any wide receivers close to that high. And so, yeah, I'm.
Well, do you imagine if we had just against the run? Let's not even just forget about what he does against. Imagine if we had Calais on one end, and we had Jadeveon on the other end. And then you got Brandon Williams and Derek Wolfe in the middle. How do you run against that?
Yeah.
You can't. You literally. We would have maybe one of the best run defenses in history if they. Of course, it's a big if Clowney stays healthy, but it would be unbelievable. He's in the top 98th percentile as a run defender since he's been in the league. So he's that good as a run defender. And we all know that if he puts it together, then he can be a hell of a pass rusher too. So yeah, I think they got to address the outside line. And I agree with you. They don't go to Brandon Williams and they don't go to Calais Campbell and ask him to take pay cuts of millions of dollars without a plan that gets them excited to do so.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be something that's like, all right, I'm willing to sacrifice for that. If you can sell somebody on the vision, you can ask them to sacrifice. But if you can't, what for? We just saw the Chiefs try and get Cheetah to restructure. You know what he said, Glenn? No, thank you. That's right. He said, once I'm signed, I'm signed. Yeah. No, thank you. So look, the fact that Calais and Brandon did that, shout out. But Eric DaCosta has to have a plan in place at this point, right? There's no way he goes to him like, hey, can you help us out, please? We're just a multi-million-dollar organization. Yep. No. And I think Alvaro Figueroa is right. I think Carlos Dunlap's another guy that we've talked about many times. It could be he could be a possibility. He could be high on their list because he brings guaranteed pass rush. He's a good run defender. He doesn't drop, but that's okay. We got guys that can drop. We got definitely Bowser is a fantastic in coverage. So, I think we'll be fine, but it's going to take some patience. But yeah, I'm with Tim Ott. I'm with Giovanni. Justin Houston would be my guy and I was so not on to him until you just look at the guy and you go, wait a minute, the guy doesn't miss games. And on down years, he has 8.5 sacks. You see what happens, folks, when Glenn listens to me? See what happens? Only good things. Only good things. No, but I agree with you 100% on the Justin Houston thing. I'm with you there. He seems like a Raven in his persona and his play. Yeah. And then King Apugo says it doesn't matter. What do you say?
There he goes. What's the point if we're going to lead the league in blitzing? The reason we lead the league in blitzing is because we're dead.
We can't get home with 4.
Since Wink Martindale has been here, dead last in the league at sacks with a 4-man pass rush. Dead last. But we're number 1 in sacks with a blitz. So they're doing that because that's what we need to do. I mean, he's adjusting to the roster. He's saying, look, we can't beat guys with 4. So we're going to send 5 or 6. That's just what the Ravens had to do. So I think they would ideally like to get home with 4 because then you can leave more guys on the back end and make an already great cover unit even better because you're leaving more in coverage. So I think that only reason that they're leading the league in blitzing every year is because they know they cannot get home with 4. Can't do it.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, because it's really, I don't know why, it's starting to strike my nerves. At the beginning, I was actually on the bandwagon that Lamar needs help and he needs weapons. But this is where I'm at with this. Number 1, weapons come in different positions, shapes, and sizes. A weapon does not equal a wide receiver. A weapon can be a tight end. A weapon can be a running back. A weapon can be a fullback, right? I mean, they can get, yeah, exactly. They can get as creative as they want to get. So that's number 1, guys. Number 2 is no one was saying Lamar needed help. Like you said, Glenn, in 2019, when he was running through the NFL and led the NFL in passing touchdowns and passing touchdowns from the pocket. Where was this whole bandwagon at when, just like you said, our wide receiver core today is better than – you're going to tell me Seth Roberts is better than a third-year Marquise Brown? You're nuts. Right? Like, come on, man. Willie Snead is better than Devin Duvernay going into this year?
Right.
No, I don't. I'll take Devin Duvernay any day of the week.
Yep.
So I don't know how you feel about it, but it's starting to get to me. I understand that we want. I mean, obviously, I want our offense to be as good as possible, but I don't think we're far away from getting there. Right. I mean, I don't think that. Yeah, we're not a traditional team. We don't need to be like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We don't need to be like the Chiefs. We don't need to be. Didn't Sarah say it on a show? We don't need to be cheap knockoffs.
No.
Right, we're going to be the best Ravens that we can be, guys. So we're going to build ourselves differently and look differently, but dang it, we're going to be the best at it.
That's right.
So anyway,
and I get that the defense. Somebody, I think it might have been King again, said the defense wasn't the problem last year. You're right, but Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue are gone, and they were our best pass rushers. So you need to replace them with someone who has the ability. 31%
of our sacks last year are gone.
Yeah, you got to replace it with somebody who can get to the quarterback. And we weren't that great with those guys. So imagine where we're going to be without our best 2. That's not a good look. So what about your thoughts on this? Bill Seals brings up another. We keep trying to do it at the same time. He says thoughts of us bringing in 2 edge guys with the added money from Brandon Williams and Campbell restructure a pure passer. I think that's a really good idea because Eric DeCosta perfectly talked about this in his press conference. He said, we'd like a guy that can drop in coverage and cover the run. But if you can do one thing well or 2 things well, then we'll find a way to get you on the field and let you do those things well. So I think you're right. If they can get a guy who has some holes in his game, and that's why he's cheaper, but he fills the need that we have at that position, and let other guys that we already have fill in the gaps of whatever gaps they have talent-wise, I think that's to be a perfect idea. And if they brought in a combination of Justin Houston and Carlos Dunlap, well, I would be very happy if you're telling me those are the replacements for Judon and Yannick.
I know people say that there's no way that we're getting Alden, but for some reason I got my eyes set on Alden Smith because I feel like you invest in these leaders to allow a guy like Alden Smith to come in. And imagine, I think I said this on our pass rush show, just the idea of, you brought up that combination. I'm going to throw another one at you. Think of Clowney and Alden Smith on the outside.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it would be good, but just because of his history, I would be stunned. If they brought him in.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you.
Didn't he bring guns to what did he do at the airport?
He had a gun on him at an airport. Yeah, he was an idiot, but that was also 4 years ago.
No, that's true, and he was pretty on the straight and narrow last year. I guess if you call the Cowboys and you sit down with his agent, you sit down with him, and he expresses, remorse of what he used to do. And look, I don't know, has he had any history of domestic violence? Because I know that's a big one here.
Somebody in our comments said he did. I can't verify
I saw that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. But
I can't verify it. I guess I can look it up. But so does Jimmy Smith.
Well, yeah, but if you remember that incident, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I remember hearing players saying, "I wish I could come to his defense because it's not." And I think the Ravens sticking by him the way he did, it made it seem like maybe it wasn't, like the story was being told. It seemed like that they were ready to come to his defense, but they just couldn't talk about it enough.
And I didn't want to say that as far as I'm like justifying that it's okay, but what I mean is that I think that the Ravens front office does a good job at not making blanket statements.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think they really dissect every situation case by case. I don't think they're okay with, I think they're okay with giving a guy a shot if he's, paid retribution and done the right things and walked the straight and narrow. You're talking 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're just going to cross it off the board. That's all I'm saying. Especially imagine if you go in and say, here's a minimum.
Yeah, no, that's possible. Yeah, that's possible. Man, he's getting older though too, which is crazy because he missed so much of he missed his entire prime. It's just it's sad. It's sad, man. But it's crazy. Hey, but good for him. He's back in the league. He's making big bucks, and he's still at least got a couple years left in him. Now, I wanted to get your take on this other because right now it's been awfully quiet about the Orlando Brown situation, at least from the castle and from the agents and stuff like that. But Mitchell Schwartz is still out there as a right tackle. Recently cut from Kansas City. He missed out on at the end of last season with a back injury, which some have said is the reason he was cut from Kansas City. They're not so sure if he's going to be ready next year, if this is a lingering back issue that could end up taking a couple years off his career or worse, ending him now. I don't know enough about the medicals there, but what would your thoughts be? Have you heard anything about Mitchell Schwartz, and what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Mitchell Schwartz, what I've heard is similar to you, is that it's just going to take a team that's able to exercise some patience. And so I'm with it, man. Think about when he was healthy, and what he was able to do as far as his efficiency at the position. I think he was one of the best right tackles in the game.
He was.
So yeah, I'm all right with taking a shot on it. They have the prediction of him taking a 1-year deal, $5 million guaranteed and like $6 million in total.
That's cheap.
Yeah, you're talking one of the best tackles in the league, and sports science is incredible. I don't know. Obviously you need to get in there and look under the hood and see what's going on, but I'm for it, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Absolutely.
Well, he did provide a little bit of an update. I think this was back in February. He tweeted out, "Injury update. I'm getting surgery today. I was hoping to recover enough to get back for the playoffs or Super Bowl, but that didn't happen. It's time to address the issue. The recovery process isn't too long, which is nice. Looking forward to a healthy 2021.
And look, I'm no doctor, but I have a feeling that if it's a back issue and he's going downhill on defenders a lot more than having to flex that back when he's pass blocking, I'm sure it's going to be better for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
And plus, you said it before, Glenn. I think that, and everyone talks about all these guys coming in with injuries, but I'm so far very optimistic with what our internal team is able to do with guys to keep them healthy. Knock on wood. But I feel like for the most part, we do a really good job with those guys.
Well, they're pretty stringent too on their physicals. I think you remember it was a couple years ago, Ryan Grant, the receiver, was originally supposed to sign here in Baltimore, but failed his physical. And it's not like he failed it for everyone, because he turned around and went to Indy, passed their physical. So it seems like the Ravens may have a more stringent, or I'm sure every team has different things that are, red flags for them that maybe not red flags for others, depending on their doctor and their training staff. But I think the Ravens are a little bit more stringent in their physical process and their medical examination. So let's just see. I guess I'm sure they've done their due diligence, reached out on them, but it just keeps making me think: are they hopeful? Are they really gonna play hardball with Orlando and say, the timing isn't right, Orlando? We get your feelings, but it's going to have to wait till next year when you hit free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And there could be a chance of that, or as teams get more and more desperate, right? As the season gets closer, maybe they realize that they don't have the opportunity in the draft, even before the draft, based on how it's projecting and things like that. Teams could get more desperate, and they could be willing to offer more. But your point, I think we can transition to draft, but before we do, your point is exactly on point.
Thank you.
To what I was saying earlier, in that I'm okay with our receivers, but my need, as you know, the difference between 20 and 19 was not the receiver core didn't drop off, right? It wasn't like the
Mhm.
receiver core was good in 19 and terrible in 20,
Right.
as far as personnel wise, but the offensive line, guys, like everyone is clamoring for a wide receiver while we don't have a center, while we don't know. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen at right tackle. So to me, we got to get the offensive line under control. That is really what's got to happen this offseason and rush the passer. I think that those two things are what are keeping us from being true contenders, for the Super Bowl, not a Kenny Golladay or another name that, we were off. A lot of people were frustrated that we didn't get.
Yeah, and I think that if you seal up the offensive line, then everything else. I mean, look, let's remember a wide receiver. I know it's getting less and less of this now with the way passing is going in the league, or the way passing is going in college. But wide receiver typically is a decent jump to get to the NFL. Like you have to. There's some things you got to learn. There's coverages you'll never see. There's option routes. Well, if you go 5 yards up, if the corner does this, you do this. If the safety does that, you do this. So there's more that they have to digest quickly. So don't you think an actual offseason will be huge for guys like Duvernay and Prochet? Huge even for guys that seem to be a slow learner like Miles Boykin, who, I know he hasn't gotten it yet, but let's remember he didn't get it, like as far as production-wise, until his final season at Notre Dame. So it's still possible, although I'm not counting on it from Miles. It's still possible that with a full offseason with two bona fide wide receiver coaches who all pros travel to Omaha to go work with one of them. I think that it's just, it can't be understated how much better the guys we already have are going to get. So I'm still confident in that, and I'm hopeful that they address and they can hopefully finally find their one in the draft.
Yeah, so let's go to Bill Seals. Shout out once again. This is an intriguing question. I like it here. Do we believe that Orlando Brown Jr. and his quote unquote left tackle / father legacy thing, do we believe in that, or does making him the highest paid right tackle keep him around if that's possible within our budget? So one thing I will say is, I think in order to make him the highest paid right tackle, he'd have to make over $18 million a year. And while we're here, on a soapbox talking about how important the offensive line is, I just don't think the Ravens can reasonably do that with Lamar's deal around the corner, Andrew's deal around the corner, Hollywood's deal around the corner, and things like that. So that's a tough one to turn, because Lane Johnson is so far ahead of the average at right tackle is $14.5 million. Lane Johnson is making 18.
Yeah, he's the outlier.
So if you got to pay him more than that.
But also and look, I know we can't necessarily always take what people say through the media at face value, and that there could be secondary. But Orlando Brown did tweet out, it's never been about the money. I'm so appreciative for this organization and all my teammates. I couldn't thank DeCosta enough. He's an incredible football mind and one of the best men I know. I want to live out the dream my dad had for me. And then he posted a quote from back when he was in high school. He said, I remember him telling my high school coach at DeMatha, if he can't play left tackle, put him on defense. My freshman year of high school, they didn't feel like I could play left tackle, so they put me at D tackle. So basically, he doesn't want to play there, and it has nothing to do with money. If it's according to him, his father looking over and seeing the admiration that the left tackle got his entire career made him envious and said, that's the guy that gets all the respect, not all the money. That's the guy that gets all the respect. And back then it was the money too. But as you said, nowadays that gap is closing. There's still a gap there, but it's closing. But to me, he don't want, it's not about the money. I mean, I'm going to trust what he's saying, and he wants the prestige of playing left tackle in the NFL. It means more to him than it probably will to someone like me or us or other fans, but to him, it means a whole lot. So,
and, this might not be something new to him. This might be something that, when he was going through college recruiting, he was telling recruiters, the same thing, coaches, the same thing. Like, look, I want to go to your program if I'm your left tackle. If you have thoughts of putting me at right tackle, don't recruit me. I'm not coming to your school. So maybe it's something he's already been, he's been dealing with for a long time, and he's willing to do what he has to do to. I guess what I'm trying to say is his heels might already be dug in here.
Yeah, and once you make your comments public, do you almost kind of back yourself into a corner where you have to stick to your guns now because you done told everybody you don't want to play right tackle. So now will you look like a guy who goes back on his word? Or do you think he could come out and say, look, I talked to the Ravens. They understand my position. but I'm gonna play out my final year, respect my contract, give them, because look, the Ravens. Who knows? I think we all agree that now, in hindsight, the Orlando Brown drafting him in the third round was a steal for the Ravens. But if the Ravens don't draft him there's no telling when he's actually drafted because of that horrendous combine performance that plummeted his draft stock. So the Ravens still did him. They still drafted him, right? I mean, do they get any any goodwill? I mean, at least play out your rookie I mean, I don't know.
No, I can understand your point there. And the other thing too, I want to mention is that, and if money really does have anything to do with it, well, I'm sure it's part of the equation. It always is, but he's got to be looking at who's the left tackle that Trent Williams, that San Francisco 49ers just locked in for another 6 years. He's got to be looking at that deal and the difference between that and Lane Johnson's deal and Bakhtiari's deal too. 4 years, $120 million, I think is what Bakhtiari's getting, or $104 million or something like that. And then six years, $123 million for Trent Williams. He's like, yeah, I want some of that.
Yeah.
Because if he goes out and balls out this coming year, I mean, he's going to be set up for that type of payday, right? Where even if he did the best that he could, he's getting Lane Johnson money if he stays
or slightly more, yeah.
Right. So it's definitely different. And I hate that I keep harping on this, Glenn, but I'm not saying that we don't need to improve as an offense for all you guys who are saying that we need an upgrade at pass rush or at wide receivers. But Glenn, tell me if I'm off here. Look, I firmly believe that the biggest difference between 1920 was not that they figured out our offensive scheme. Is that every time Lamar was under pressure so much more. He didn't have confidence with the guys in front of him. The ball was flying over his head. It was off to his right. It's so much different when you have a solid offensive line in front of you. We had an all-pro left tackle go down and then took our right tackle and made him a left tackle. Sure, he made the Pro Bowl, but Ronnie Stanley was the all-pro. Let's not get it twisted. And he was gone. Marshall Yanda, Hall of Famer. Gone. Just to those two things alone, and you're saying, let's just repeat the same results. No, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't, right? He's a future Hall of Famer for a reason. He's an all-pro for a reason. So for me, I don't think it's that people all of a sudden figured us out. I do think we need to improve, but we need to shore up the freaking offensive line.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much longer here, but I mean, I agree. I think if they figured us out, they wouldn't let us make the playoffs, wouldn't let us get to, it was 11 wins. If they figured them out, they wouldn't just lay down in the regular season to save their ammo for the playoffs when a lot of the teams we beat didn't even make the playoffs. And part of that reason was they lost to the Ravens in week whatever. So I think if they figured them out, they would employ that same it's just the problem is when you're in the playoffs, you're playing really good teams, and that's why the Ravens have lost, because they ran into really good teams and they had a better day that day. I mean, that's just what it was. But yeah, I'm excited because I see a lot of people talking about the draft, and it got me really pumped. I started watching yesterday morning. I watched for probably five hours or so, and then again today. Put in another few hours, just studying as much tape as I can on, and I tried to make sure I was looking at guys that were either tied to the Ravens or mocked at least around the area the Ravens are picking, and tried to look at those guys. But I wanted to just talk about where should we start, Jimmy?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is that what we're going to talk about today, it's more than anything about food for thought in the early. We're talking first round guys right now.
Yeah.
So we'll dig deeper in
first
as the draft.
Second, yep.
Right. So as the draft gets closer, we'll talk about like potential hidden gems, potential high value guys later in the draft, things like that, potential steals and stuff. But right now we're talking. The first and second round guys, top end of the draft. So where I would like to start, Glenn, is in the wide receiver room. I want to dig into some of these guys because I think this is where, if we make an improvement at wide receiver, this is where it will be. This is where it will happen. It's not going to happen in free agency. So the Ravens, who, just like Sarah astutely mentioned, have taken the most at bats at wide receiver since he became the GM, the chances are we're taking one.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's where I want to start. So who you got?
Well, I did see this name mentioned a couple times, and that is the Florida receiver Kadarius Toney. And so I wanted to start there because let's see, I watched Ole Miss game. I watched the South Carolina game, Alabama game. I watched Senior Bowl one-on-ones and some highlights. And the first thing is he's a punt and kick returner, so that's always nice. The guy will return both, and he seems to be a threat at both. A guy that can definitely make some guys miss. Didn't see him having any issues catching the ball, which is always important, certainly as a punt returner. Also saw that he'll take a jet sweep, and he is physical, Jimbo. When he gets the ball, I saw him take a jet sweep and truck a defender and then keep motoring down the field. They like getting the ball any way they can around the line of scrimmage. They'll throw a screen to him, like nobody's business. I mean, they love throwing the ball to him around the line of scrimmage and seeing if he can go make a bunch of guys miss. And he definitely has that quick twitch, make you miss ability. He's mostly a slot receiver who's definitely got the toughness to go over the middle and make those tough catches, as well as up the seam and make the over-the-shoulder tough catches, which can be quite challenging. He's an explosive route runner. I mean, he changes speed well. What I loved about him is the way he sets people up. You know, he'll slow down and then boom, explode to kind of confuse the cornerback. He uses his speed. He slows down and speeds up and uses his speed and can make guys look kind of silly, honestly, especially over the middle when he's matched up against a slot. The one thing I did notice that bummed me out a little bit was he had a couple bad drops in the Senior Bowl one-on-one drills. Matched up against some pretty physical corners, which, of course, when he gets to the league, he's going to be seeing the best of the best when it comes to corners, and he's not going to be taking advantage of as many slouches out there. Right. Now, to me personally, now, again, I'm going to continue to watch more tape on all these guys. This is, let's see, 1, 2, 3 games, a Senior Bowl one-on-ones, and highlights. So I'm still going to continue to watch. But to me, he's a better version, or he's a more polished version of Devin Duvernay, and he's got more wiggle than Devin Duvernay. But he's very similar in the sense that we can use Devin Duvernay on those screens or those jet sweeps. He's physical with the ball in his hands, a lot like this guy is. But this guy's got a little bit more wiggle. That's why I say he's like a better version of Duvernay, because Duvernay is a punt and kick returner. He showed it very well in the league that he can do both. So to me, I like him, but he doesn't fit what the Ravens need.
Right. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you there. I like him, and I don't know if I would. I understand what you're saying. He doesn't fit what we want in a big body, pushing the sidelines of the field and stuff like that. But remember that Lamar Jackson is one of the best at work in the middle of the field. That's what he's comfortable with. That's what he likes to do. People will say he doesn't like to run outside the numbers, but he dominates in the middle of the field. So with that said, he could have increased value for a team like the Ravens. But there's a guy that I want to bring up that I've seen. I think in the first mock draft I looked at, I think even in Mel Kiper, being a Maryland boy himself, he's usually pretty on to what the Ravens are doing. Is Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. So I like this kid. They call him the other in the draft profile I'm reading on him. They call him the other guy in the LSU's historic offensive season. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, big catch radius, super athletic. I think he's getting a lot of love because of the Justin Jefferson success in the NFL, and hopefully rightfully so. But I like this kid a lot as far as a fit for the Ravens. I think to me, one of the interesting things will be whether or not he's there at 27 based on how other teams evaluate him as well. Because some people have him as the number one receiver in the draft. And so I've seen him kind of all over the place. Terrace Marshall Jr.
Wow. Some people have him as number one.
Yeah. The number one rated wide receiver in the draft. I've seen him mocked at in a couple places. So yeah, it's definitely going to be It's definitely going to be interesting. Glenn's tending to his dog. So I'm going to get to, before I get into Marshall Jr. anymore. And just so you guys know, Misha, she's a new guest and friend of the show. That's Glenn's dog. So all shots on goal are not created equal. This is from our guy Skeptic Goat. Shout out, always contributing to the show. Just like all wide receivers drafted aren't equal. Hollywood is the only one that she doing all right.
Dog was going nuts. I don't know what was going on out front.
She saw ghosts. That was the thing. They'll see ghosts.
Man, yeah, she was acting crazy. I'm sorry I had to bail on you. Did you finish talking about Terrace?
Yeah, I kind of jumped over to this, and we can go back to that. So,
Okay.
so Hollywood is the only one that was top 10 ranked in his draft class. So, Skeptic Goat, if you can follow up on this, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by this statement. I mean, I understand the idea that all shots on goal are not created equal, just like all wide receivers drafted aren't equal. So if this is about like a size and shape thing, that they can come and have all different body types and positions, whether that they prefer to play in the slot and have success there on the outside, big catch radius, speedy, whatever it is. If that's what you're talking about, I 100% agree with that. Glenn, you know this. I've always been the short guy. So I am the last one to discriminate against someone because they don't have the body type, right? Because
but we're looking for a specific type of player.
No, we are, but we're looking for a guy that plays that way too. You said this before. Boykin fits the bill.
Right, that's what I'm saying. When I say type of player, I don't just mean physical. I mean
exactly. I think that's what skeptic. I think that's exactly right, and that's my point. Right? Is that like it's much more important how you use what you got than what you got.
Absolutely, but as far as Hollywood has some ability, and he's got some talent. But I wouldn't look at him and say, man, he plays so much bigger than he is.
No,
that's just not that.
Not
he's got
yet
great
anyway.
hands. Exactly. He's got great hands. He's explosive. He's got some quick twitch, although he hasn't shown a ton of make you miss after catch since he's been in the league. Showed a little bit more last year than he did in 19, but he definitely isn't a guy that you would ever throw a jump ball to. Just never in a million years throw a one-on-one jump ball, certainly not in the red zone. Maybe if you can run by somebody. But yeah, I mean, so we're not necessarily looking for a guy that has to be 6'5" or anything like that, but he has to play the type of way that the Ravens need. They need a possession guy, a guy that can go up and get the ball and win one-on-one battles and do some things. But I don't know how far you got into Terrace, but did you? Because I want to talk about Terrace.
Yeah. Let's do that, and then what we'll do is we'll give them a couple other names and some tidbits, and then we'll move on because I also want to spend time on rush and offensive line. But let's get into Terrace for now, and then we'll move on. But the only thing I'll say about him is that if the Ravens take him in the first round, I am elated. I like this kid,
Terrace.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, for one, I'm just glad that I'm getting his name right because I thought his name was Terrence until I started watching tape on him. I'm like, oh, his name is Terrace. I'm an idiot. But no, I watched Mississippi State, Oklahoma from 2019, Missouri, and Texas A&M. So, the notes I put down, he lined up in the slot and outside, but more of an outside receiver. He runs through contact during his route. He's not easily rerouted by the defender. So if he's running and somebody tries to just knock him off his route, it's not easy because he's a big boy.
Yeah.
So it's not easy just to reroute him. A lot of times he just runs through that. Those little arm contact, it doesn't even phase him. He's not physical as a run blocker, though. This kind of bothered me. He got absolutely flattened by a safety. He tried to go up and square up to a safety and boom, got put right on his ass. But he's got the size and he's got, you'd think that that's something he could develop and get better at, but he certainly needs to improve if he's going to come here to Baltimore. Did see a couple bad drops where he took his eye off the ball. He's looking for a defender kind of over the middle, but not too concerning in my opinion because he makes so many contested catches.
Mm-hmm.
He high points the ball. He brings it in through contact. He's got great hands. And as we talk about, he's got snatchability, Jimbo.
That's right.
He's got it in abundance. I love the fact that they used him in the screen game. They'll throw a quick slant to him. And he's got the speed that he can take that quick slant and boom, take it up the middle of the field and be gone for 80. I mean, he's just got that. I think he adjusts well to off-target throws, which is another thing here in Baltimore that a lot of people are saying, well, Lamar's not the most accurate guy. So, it'd be nice if we had a guy with a big catch radius. Well, he's got that. He can adjust to high balls, low ball. I mean, I saw him catch a tip ball that he had no business of getting down to, and he was able to get down and scoop it off the turf. To me, this is the exact type of guy the Ravens need. I mean, a guy that you can line up on the outside. If you see one-on-one in the red zone, throw it up to the big fella. Mm-hmm. And guess what? If you're a little bit further out, maybe just at the 20 or 15, throw a back shoulder to him, and he can turn around and snatch that. I think he seems like the perfect fit, and I'm hopeful. I think he's definitely going to be there at 27. I would be kind of surprised. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. I think he's got a good shot at making it to 27. I don't think he makes it to our second round pick.
Yeah.
But I do think he'll make it to the first round selection. And man, if they could bring in a guy like this, he would be perfect for what the Ravens need.
Yeah, and all the Ravens fans, I think, would no longer be upset. All right, so Skeptic Goat put in a follow-up. Sarah keeps mentioning that they have drafted 6 wide receivers in recent years, but they weren't highly ranked at their positions, and they weren't unique fits. Now, the only thing I'll say to that, Skeptic
Marquise
Goat,
was.
Yeah, he definitely was. And
that
the
was
other
his
thing
first pick, right? As the GM.
Yeah, and yeah, he was. And the only thing I'll say to that is that I think DaCosta is more about volume at wide receiver. He talked about this, that you've seen some wide receivers go in the first, that wide receivers go in the first round all the way to the 7th round, and some guys just end up, producing, and other guys don't. Look, I know there's one example. There's a lot of them. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Thielen undrafted?
He may have been like a 5th round pick, but yeah,
but he was a late round guy, and there's a lot of late round guys that have done really well in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of, while every position has a lot of that, I think that's one of the unique things about wide receiver, that there's a lot of value found in every round. And so I think Eric is just about volume. Like, get the picks in there, right? Just make them. Not saying that he's just shotgunning.
Well, no, but I agree with Skeptic Goat in the sense that, look, when we took Duvernay and Prochet, that was a monster year as far as it was supposed to be. Like 18 guys were rated as a 2nd round or better that year going in the draft. Right. And we didn't take any of them. We waited until round 4 or whatever it was to take Duvernay.
Yeah. You were fuming. I remember that.
Yeah, because there was so many guys just going off the board. Not to say we don't like them, but I understand, we wanted to take a shot at one of the higher ranked guys. Now, they did, and when they took Hollywood Brown, at least in their opinion, they took their favorite guy in the draft. Now, in hindsight, when we look back,
DK Metcalf, AJ Brown,
we kind of scratch our head because, we see AJ Brown, we see Terry McLaurin, we see DK Metcalf, we see I think there's another one I'm blanking on, I'm forgetting, but Juju, wasn't Juju out that year, or was it the year before?
I think it was the year before Juju came in.
But yeah, there's a bunch of guys out there, and I know there's some more I'm forgetting if the chat could help me, but so they were hoping that we get more of that prototypical guy. We get that more big, fast, strong, and we got a guy who's a little smaller, and they were hoping was our Tyreek Hill, and that's fine. I think he's a good player, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think that's a very fair comment from as far as they weren't highly ranked, but I understand in the second draft for Eric DaCosta, I'll give you that. But in the first one, he took what he thought was the best receiver in Hollywood Brown. So and I think most people had Hollywood as mocked as a first round pick. So it's not like he jumped out and grabbed some guy that was supposed to be a 3rd rounder.
Right. We didn't pull a Raiders, right? Like Mike Mayock and John Gruden, where they just pull guys out of a hat and say, take him.
Yeah, we didn't pull at Oakland and grab Darius Hayward-Bay as his 6th pick or whatever that was that year, or Cleveland Farrell, to your point.
Number 4, right?
Number 4, when Gruden and Mayock took over. But Adam78 also says, I see a pass rusher first round. Day 2 of the draft, I see them going for a receiver. Certain receivers like Elijah Moore and Amari Rodgers will be on the board. I'm going to look at those guys as well.
Mari is the son of who? T. Martin, right?
T. Martin, yeah. So you expect it. That's your father, that you're getting some pretty darn good coaching your entire life and upbringing. So I certainly am excited to watch his tape, because I better see some crisp route running. I mean, I better see a polished looking receiver when your dad is a famed wide receiver coach and a former offensive coordinator at some big time programs. So I wouldn't be shocked though if they take a pass rusher in the first round. Again, we think that's their biggest area of need. So I would be happy with it. And I did look at so far, I think 3 edge guys. And did you look at 1? So we're up to 4. Yeah. So we're up to 4 edge guys. We have looked at some guys, and I like some. But there's still some combines coming out, or some pro days coming out, which kind of stinks. I'm waiting. So I'm hopeful. I think all of them are done in either at the end of March or the very beginning of April. I'm pretty sure they're all done by the end of March. So that'll give us some more clarity on some of these guys, because some of this stuff you got to see their times, man, because it's hard to judge a guy when he's playing against such, when you're seeing SEC school taking on one of these lower, these schools they blow out by 60. It's hard to really judge them, because of course they're going to dominate when they're playing against a 1-star guy and they're a 5-star guy surrounded by other 5-star guys. So I
Right.
want to see some of this times, and that could provide some clarity. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all, Adam, if they went first round pass rush and second round wide out. Skeptic Goat doubles down. He says if you aren't going to invest free agent money in wide receivers, then you better invest high draft capital in wide receiver. Hollywood is the only one, and he produced. I agree with you. That's something we've been wanting. And I think, but the good thing is DeCosta's admitted it, that they need to take more shots, and they have been. They've drafted more receivers than anyone in the league since he's been here. Now, I agree. Last time around, it wasn't the higher rounds like we were hoping, but, I mean, that's just not how their board laid out. And I think we all admit that middle linebacker was a pretty big area of need last year. So taking a guy like Queen first certainly filled some holes on the defense.
Yeah, you got to take the running back of the defense, right? First round.
Yeah,
shout out to Matt Stevens.
That's right. But yeah, so I agree with you though. I want to see more top picks. I would not be mad at all to see the Ravens go out and grab one in the first round this year, despite the fact that they're still needy at some other positions. Because if you want a number one, you don't get them in free agency. You just don't, unless you're a bad team with tons of carryover cap space, which the Ravens are never going to be that. They're never going to be a team with an abundance of cap space, because every single year, and this year is no different, they will be spending to the absolute limit of what they are allowed to spend according to the cap. So there's just, I agree with you. I'm hoping that they find that guy. Oh, I don't care what round they find him, but I agree with you. I'd like to see him take a shot in the first or second round.
Yeah. So Glenn, this is what I'm hoping to do. Let's run through. Let's do a briefing on the guys that we have left at wide receiver, because we got these 15 minutes. I want to make sure at least we get all the names out there.
Okay. All right. Let me see.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me go to another guy who I'm excited about, and he gets brought up constantly in our comments, so I had to watch it. I watched
Bateman.
him first. Minnesota receiver Rashad Bateman. I watched the Maryland game, Iowa game, Penn State from 2019, Purdue from 19 and 20, and I watched highlights. So I probably watched the most on this guy. He lined up both inside and outside. I think he lined up a little bit more inside in 20 than he did in 19. Another guy who's not really physical as a blocker, and not that physical when he has the ball in his hands. He's got speed, but he's not the type of guy that is just going to go break a bunch of tackles. If he can outrun you, he'll outrun you. So he will get some yak, but usually he gets that yak from his speed rather than his physical abilities. Let's see. He did short arm a couple passes over the middle when he sensed the defender, but if he's confident there's nobody there, he will snatch the ball. He will go get it, and he will burst out of that, out of that catch if he's confident there's nobody there. I did see a few bad drops. I think I saw like 6 drops in 5 games. So that's concerning. But let's talk about what he does well, because I think he does a nice job of recognizing coverages and adjusting his route. If he sees his defender like blitzing, or if he sees his defender coming up to cover the flat, he adjusts it well, looks for the ball, is ready for the ball when his quarterback's getting it out to him quick. I think he's got good burst after the catch. He's got the speed to take a slant 80 yards and outrun angles. I saw him make a few contested catches, showed he could high point the ball. The thing that worries me, though, Jimmy, and I want to know your take on this. When it was big time moments at Minnesota, whether it be 19 or 2020, like big time third downs, big time fourth downs, what I saw, he wasn't the go-to. It was a guy named Johnson in 2019 and a guy named Autumn Bell, I believe I'm getting it correctly, in 2020. He wasn't that guy that they went to on 3rd and 8 when they needed a conversion. Now, he ended up being, I think, he led their team in catches in 20, but he was second on their team in 19. And he led in 20, but he was only a little bit ahead of Autumn Bell. But like I said, in those big moments, it was 4th and 8, game on the line. They went to the other guy, and that's like, does that concern you all? If he's not the man at Minnesota on those moments, does it worry you?
Yeah,
I know he can develop, but
yeah, that's a little concerning. The only thing I'll tell you that makes it less concerning in our offense is that Andrews has already established himself as that guy on 3rd down, right? But we want Hollywood to take some of that load off of Andrews. But there's another guy who we all know well, that wears number 8, that usually on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 might make a couple people on skates himself, right? So there are always a lot of options available when you have such a dynamic runner of the football like Lamar Jackson, who can do so much with his feet as well as throw the football. So yeah, those high leverage moments are still super important. But I think that if Lamar is the quarterback and Andrews is tight end, you're already going to be at very best number 3 on third down. You know what I mean? So now I think it's important, and I think your point is valid. But that's the only thing that I would say that makes me feel a little better in our offense specifically.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I think the reason it worries me is because is that a lack of confidence by the coaches? Are they saying, look, we don't know for sure you'll hold on to that ball if the quarterback can get it to you? That would be my only concern. But I will say this: he can track the deep ball well. He adjusts well to it to make the catch. He showed good body awareness on the sideline, keeping his feet in bounds, which, if anyone's ever done it, they make it look so easy on TV, but it's not that easy to always know where every part of your body is and to tiptoe on the sideline. I think he does a nice job there. And the last note I said, he has number 1 ability if he can clean up the drops and play more physical. I'd like to see him play more physical. You know what I mean? Like use his hands more and kind of bully, because he's got the size. But sometimes I would see him kind of get pushed around by the more physical corners. And that kind of bothered me a little bit, but he's got number 1 ability if he can clean up the drops and use a little more physicality in his game. Yeah,
absolutely. So Glenn, why don't you give us the other 2 names, and then we'll move over to the other positions. 2 names for you guys to look out for. And we've done some initial analysis on, so we want to get your guys' opinion as the draft moves on closer. 2 guys that we're excited about as well. Who are those other 2 guys? And then we'll move to offensive line.
Okay, so am I giving you any of my notes or just in the names?
Well, so whichever one you want to do.
I don't want to filibuster. But
I just want to make sure we have time to get to edge and O-line. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'll try and be quick then. Oklahoma State wide receiver.
You're on the clock.
Yeah, Tylan Wallace. I watched West Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Texas. Outside guy, didn't really see him at all in the slot. He showed ability to high point the ball and make contested catches. He's got the snatch ability, Jimbo.
Yeah.
He's physical as a ball carrier, will run through arm tackles. They got him the ball on screens, slants, end arounds, quick outs, etc., to see if he can go out, and go break some tackles. He does a nice job using his hands at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have the elite speed, at least on tape, to run by NFL corners, which is a little bit concerning. He lacks a little bit of separation. I liked him as a blocker. They used him to block in a lot of different ways. A lot of times they'll just, you'll see a guy out there shielding, but this guy was slamming down and blocking the end of the line of scrimmage. He was using his body to turn defenders and wall them off. I thought he was a pretty darn good blocker. Not a bad route runner, but he's not real explosive in and out of his breaks. And I thought he did a nice job adjusting and tracking and adjusting to the deep ball. So I like him. I would like to see a little more separation. That worries me about him at the next level. If you can't separate in college, it's gonna be tough. And then I took a look at Wake Forest wide receiver Sage Surratt. I watched Florida State, Louisville, and North Carolina from 2019, as well as Senior Bowl one-on-ones and some highlights. And he's a red zone threat, Jimbo. He can catch the fade. He can catch the back shoulder. He can catch the slant through contact. And they went to him consistently in the red zone. It's like how I was talking about with Bateman, how they didn't go to him in those high leverage situations. And that shows trust, right? Well, they went to this guy in red zone. If they saw one-on-one, the quarterback dropped back and he threw it to his guy. And that, to me, shows trust. That tells me that in practice he's doing it. That tells me that the coaches are impressed with it and that the players show confidence, especially the quarterback, that if they throw it, at the very least, it's going to get knocked down, but there's a good shot he'll get to it. He's primarily an outside receiver. I think he has good potential to be a route runner because he doesn't take real long strides for how tall he is. He's kind of got pretty choppy feet, but he definitely needs development there. He draws a lot of flags, which is a good sign. I mean, he'll draw some holding penalties, some PIs, which is definitely a good sign and works well in a league where they don't like you touching the receivers too much. I think he needs to use his hands a little bit better and be more physical as a runner. I mean, as a route runner, especially at his size, he doesn't run when he gets hit. He will get rerouted by some strong-handed guys. I think he's an effective blocker, and I think he can track and adjust well to the deep ball and pull it in. So I think he's got some talent. He's got some ability, but I'm interested to see his pro day. His pro day, I think, is the 29th. So I'll be interested to see what he runs. And the final guy is Auburn wide receiver Seth Williams. Let me just lead by saying this. It is so hard and so frustrating to judge a wide receiver when they have poor quarterback play, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was getting balls thrown every direction, over his head, out of bounds. I mean, balls in the dirt. I felt bad for him sometimes. I mean, I'm like, my goodness, can he get a chance to get his hand on it? But I'll say that he's athletic, man. He jumped over a ball. He jumped over the defender as a ball carrier, cleared him, wasn't even close, and kept on moving. He's an effective blocker. He will win one-on-ones, but I did see him get absolutely mossed by a cornerback, an LSU cornerback in a one-on-one throw. He jumped too early, and the corner didn't, and the corner took it from him, and that was a little disturbing. I did see some bad drops I wasn't a fan of. He had a false start, which we don't need no more penalties here in Baltimore.
Oh, gosh.
He did make some contested catches, including some circus catches. He made a catch on the sideline. I think everyone thought it was a throwaway, and he just reached out of bounds, tapped it back to himself, and made a fantastic catch. Let's see. He's a red zone threat. He can make the back shoulder catch along the sideline, but needs to do that a little bit more consistently. I saw a couple drops there as well. And he will occasionally give up on a route if he's not expecting a throw, which is not a good look, especially because I saw him do it in the Iron Bowl against Alabama, which is not good. He ran his
not
route.
A good place to do it.
Yeah, he ran his route and then kind of just started jogging, and then realized, whoa, the quarterback's scrambling over here and tried to, and the target came his way, but he wasn't expecting it, and it ended up being. But I can understand that when you look at the poor quarterback play. But that's all I've looked at so far. So feel free to throw some names, especially some late round names. If you want me to check them out, I will definitely be doing so.
Looks like the spirit of Ogon shouted out Amon Ra St. Brown. Apparently T Martin tried to recruit him. So we'll definitely be looking at him as well. And we appreciate the shout out. Any other names, guys, put them in the chat, like Glenn said. But Glenn, what I want to do as well, wide receiver is important, but you know me, I live and die by the O-line. I've been talking about it this whole show. So I want to talk about, we have three guys that we're excited about from the O-line. And I'm going to give you mine first. And he's not a guard. He's not a center. He's a tackle. Okay. Because the chances are, I think, like you said, that Orlando's gone, right? Yeah. And what do we do with that pick? We turn it around and we turn it into Tevin Jenkins, Oklahoma State tackle. Okay. All right, so let me tell you about Tevin. 6'6", 320. He's not quite as big as Orlando, but 6'6", 320 ain't too small. Not right? Small. No, it ain't too small. A couple things that I noticed when I was watching his tape. Powerful hands. He can displace defenders. As soon as he, they talk about resetting the offensive line. Mm-hmm. As soon as he gets both his mitts on you, the offensive line has been reset. I mean, this guy is moving you backwards. He's aggressive. He's a mauler. He's nasty. One of the quotes I liked is they said that Jenkins plays like he's personally offended that a defender would try and get past him.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I really liked as well is that they graded him as a 10 out of 10 on angle blocking in the run game. That his knowledge of angles is awesome. He's really good at getting up the field, making the right block, and so that what they did was they gave a couple examples of some cutbacks that the running back was able to make, all based on the angle that Tevin had set up for him. He can play left, he can play right. Obviously, he's more natural at a right, and he's projected to stay at right. So I really like Tevin Jenkins. I say we go get him. He's been rising up the board as it's been as the draft has been getting closer. I think he started out projecting the third round. Now, he's moved up past the second. Now some people are projecting him late first, early second. So I think he'll be sitting right there at 27.
Interesting, man.
Tevin Jenkins.
I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that they can mend fences for at least one more year with Orlando. But if not, they're going to certainly have to replace him. Okay, Tevin Jenkins sounds like a guy that I would like to see in Baltimore.
Yeah, like I said this to you off the show. It might have been the fact that he's wearing 73, but he reminded me one heck of a lot of Marshall Yanda in his nastiness. Just the grittiness about him. Just Yeah,
and all those asking for are hoping that Pitts falls.
It's not going to happen. He just ran a 4.46.
There is no way. That dude is 200 and how many pounds?
I think 240. He's 6'6", 240 isn't what he is?
I thought he was 250 at least. And ran, too fast. So, there's no chance that would be awesome. But I think right now he's mocked number 5 in the draft to Cincinnati.
He's 6'6", 240 and ran a 4.46 40.
Crazy. You know what's even crazier though? If as crazy as that is and as insane those numbers are, it doesn't even touch what Vernon Davis did coming out.
I know, dude, man. We were talking about that. And it's like we ran a 4.38.
I mean, stop it. That is ridiculous. You can't run that fast. But yeah, so that would be nice, but unfortunately, there's no chance that Pitts will. And actually, there's a better chance we're going to be playing against him twice a year with where Cincinnati's picking rather than him coming here. But I'm excited to talk about some centers, Jimbo, because we've been hearing all about how the Ravens need a center, and we agree. And there's some good ones in this draft. And I started with the one I hear most about and the one that everyone tells me they're excited about, and that is Oklahoma center Creed Humphrey.
Can you take me higher?
Wasn't bad, actually. I watched a few games from him, watched some Senior Bowl one-on-ones as well. And I'll say this, he's got good awareness and pass protection. I love the fact that he keeps his head on an absolute swivel when he's engaged in double teams, always looking to help a teammate. I think he anchors well against big defensive tackles, will not get bull rushed. It's amazing. He uses great leverage for his height. I mean, this guy gets low, bends his knees well, and he will not get pushed back by even the biggest of slobber knockers in the middle. I thought, everybody talked about how he's a phone booth guy. Everything I heard is he's not much of a zone guy. He's more of a one-on-one man guy, which is exactly what we want here in Baltimore. But I did see him pull against Missouri State, and I thought he showed some nice feet and showed he could move a little bit when asked, albeit he didn't get asked very often. I think I may have seen twice where he was asked to do that. So he doesn't get asked to do that very often, not involved too much in the screen game. That's just not what they do in Oklahoma, I guess. But yeah, so I was impressed with the limited time I did see him asked to do it. And it could be a reason he's not asked to do it because he's not very good, but he looked okay in the times I did. I thought he anticipated stunts well, waiting for the rusher. I saw him calling out some blitzers pre-snap. I'm not sure how often he was asked to do it, but I did definitely see him do it. He played center and he played a little bit of guard in the Senior Bowl as well and was doing really well, handling himself nicely. Very quick from snap to block. And what I liked about him is, and he's not the only one who does this, but when it's like, those third and shorts, fourth and shorts, where a lot of times it's whoever's quickest, to get that QB sneak or get that, you got to be quick. You got to snap it. You got to get the head up quick and boom, you got to explode quick. It seemed like he was quicker when he needed to be. He was always quick from snap to block, but he was quicker when he needed to be and was able to beat defenders in those high leverage moments, those short yardage moments. I thought he was good at using defenders' momentum against him. If a guy wanted to overextend himself, he'll just turn and let you go. See you later.
Mm-hmm. If Take you want the chair out right from under him.
Yeah, bye-bye. Go ahead. If you want to show how powerful you are and run yourself right out of the play, he'll let you do it. I like that about him. He's smart. I think he is a perfect fit for the Ravens and would be a massive upgrade day one as a starter and wouldn't be going anywhere for a decade.
That's awesome. So the other guy and the other center, of course, which we've already got some comments about, but of course, that's Landon Dickerson. He came in the last play or whatever at the end of Alabama. He had the ACL injury, and he's the oft injured, highly talented guy out of Alabama. Now, we already have an Alabama center on our roster, but there's a lot of good things. And of course, I'm referring to Bradley Bozeman, who we've refused to play at center. But why don't you give it? Well, I'll give you some notes on him because I've seen a little bit of him as well. So a couple things is that and I like this. He's always looking for someone to hit. And they talked about this with Marshall Yanda and how good he was at helping out the younger guys with as soon as his job was done, he wasn't finished, right? He was going to help out the guys next to him. So that's crucial, especially at center. He's always staying busy, does a nice job turning defenders in the run game to wall them off. And I think that's similar to what I talked about with like the angle blocking.
Yep.
So that's crucial for our offense based on how much we're running the ball. It's definitely a nasty mauler type guy. A lot of these interior guys are. So if you can stick out in your nasty meter as an interior offensive lineman, it means you're a pretty gritty guy. He finishes to the end of the play and then some, drive the already pancake defender into the turf and things like that. Like he'll really, shove their nose in it, if you will. Has good mobility getting down the field and getting to the second and sometimes even third level. And, another one that's super important, this kind of goes with staying busy, is always seems to have his head on a swivel as he's, the general of that pocket, if you will, right? He's the keystone where if everything else isn't together, it falls apart. He's watching multiple things at once and able to digest information quickly. So I'm excited about him. Now, Glenn, one of the things I'm thinking about is should we tease Edge and get to it next time? Should we yeah,
maybe we'll because I want to look at some more and get a bigger sample size.
That's right now was just about getting you guys a little excited. We're dipping our toe in, maybe
before we move on from Landon, I did want to add a couple because I agree with everything you said, but I did want to add a couple notes at the
please.
I did see him on his back a few times, which concerned me. I did see him get knocked back. A couple times he lost his footing, ended up on his back, and not to say it happened often. It didn't. It happened very occasionally.
Makes me think of Makari.
But I didn't see Creed Humphrey. I didn't see that from Creed Humphrey, and that bothers me. But also from Landon, he in 5 college football seasons, he suffered 4 season-ending injuries. He tore his ACL in 2016. He missed 9 games in 2017. Was forced to redshirt by an ankle injury in 2018, and then, of course, tore his ACL again at the tail end of 2020. So,
he's only got 1 good year of tape then.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because his teammates guys were crying on his offensive line when he tore his ACL at the end of 2020. Like, his teammates were crying on the field because this guy means that much to him, and he's that much of an inspiration to his teammates. So, man, it just sucks because he's such a good player, but I can't imagine a team taking a first-round pick on a guy who's been injured every year. Every year he gets hurt. How can you send a first-round pick his way? So to me, I think Creed Humphrey is the guy there, and it'd be interesting because there's some mocks saying he'll make it to the end of second round. Man, I would be surprised, man. If there's any way they could pull off getting him in the second round with their that would be stunning to me. But yeah, to me, Creed right now is the leader in the clubhouse between those two.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so this was just to, once again, dip our toe in the water a little bit, some names to get you guys excited. Give us some names. We're also gonna put a video out on the Edge guys, some names that we've identified early. Whether that's the rest of this week or our next live show, but we'll be getting into that as well, and some more names in those other positions. But one thing I want to mention is that for all you guys that stuck around, you get some inside information that tomorrow is going to be awesome. We are having another live show from 7 to 8 p.m. we're calling it an AFC North roundup. You guys should be really excited about this. I think it's going to be awesome. If you've been watching the show, you're familiar with Chris Carter, who represents the Pittsburgh Steelers from a media perspective. Jeff Risdon from the Browns Wire, who represents obviously the Browns. Anthony over at Orange and Black for the Bengals. All 3 of those guys are going to be on the show with Glenn and I. We're going to go live. And look, these aren't going to be layup questions. We're going to be doing positional rankings. We're going to be doing way too early season predictions. We're going to be doing draft strategy and needs for all these teams. And I'm going to put these guys to the test. And if anyone, we do positional rankings, ranks any of their quarterbacks ahead of Lamar Jackson, I might just have to mute them for 30 seconds or so.
They might be going timeout.
I'd put them right in the timeout chair.
Yeah, I'm excited, man, because, these guys, especially Chris Carter, he is a very confident Steeler. I would say he's a fan. I know he covers the Steelers for his job, but, man, it seems awfully like he's a fan when he's on here defending the detractors about his Steelers. So it's going to be interesting to see his take on what's been going on. Jeff Risdon should be coming in hot with a lot of fire. After what the Browns have been doing this offseason, they've had a lot of talent, especially to the defensive side of the ball, looking to kind of fix that secondary that had some struggles last year. And then I know the Bengals are still rebuilding, but they've made some moves. They've added some talent. They've seen some familiar faces,
some corners. Yeah,
just like they did last year. Yeah, typical Bengals. But it's going to be interesting to see how confident. Like how confident Chris is that the Steelers can still compete, for the division, much less the AFC, but can they even compete for the division? They definitely moved some money around, I think, and got a little more room, but still they got a lot of holes. And then, I want to see how confident Jeff Risdon is, because he's been covering him a long time, so he's seen and he knows that winning the offseason doesn't necessarily always lead to
Right.
wins in the fall. But, man, it's hard to not like what they've done. So, yeah, we're going to be sticking up for the Ravens. We're going to be letting them know that the Ravens are coming. But, yeah, it should be interesting tomorrow night. Hopefully it doesn't get too ugly in here. Hopefully nobody gets,
we're going to be nice.
But, yeah, stay in the comments because we'll certainly throw some questions their way if you put some good ones in the comments and get their take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just like always, want to give you guys some shout outs tonight. Spirit of Ogon, Tanya Brown, always in here. King of Pugo, Adams James Ring, of course, Skeptic Goat. I don't know if you got some other ones. Luis is I think a first time commenter. Luis Cubillas, pretty awesome. Nana,
Terrence Hall in there, and I agree, Terrence. The Big 12 defense is not like the SEC, and you definitely have to take that into account. Let's see. Did you say Adam 78? Wesley Slemp. I'm sorry. I thought there was an H at the end. I threw one in there. Let's see. Marcel Allen's always in here. Appreciate you always being in here. Bill Seals, was frequently in here. Did we hit the Spirit of Ogun? Did we did,
yeah.
Okay, that's right. T. Martin tried to recruit him. We did. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anyone. And just so you guys know, as far as Edge, if you got some guy in mind that you want me to watch on and speak on, I'll just let you know who I've already looked at. I've looked at Edge from Texas, Joseph Asai, Penn State, Jason Away, Miami, Jalen Phillips, and what the heck did Kitty
and Quiddy Pay, the Michigan.
That was your
Edge
guy.
That's my guy. That's right.
I didn't look at him, so that's why it looks so confusing. No. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so Michigan
like
defender.
Him, so,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you guys have any other names, throw them up in the chat. We'll take a look. But either way, we're going to be looking at a bunch of guys on the edge. But, look, the draft is a long way away. So, I guess we should try and pace ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. We're going to be – it's just like, sometimes you can't just jump in the pool, guys. You got to take it in one step at a time.
Quincy. I see Quincy. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be sure to give you more and more information. Of course, we're going to be putting out a full 7th round mock draft, a full 1st round mock draft all around the whole league. So, definitely going to be doing all of that. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned. Get excited for tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Make sure you're on ready to go with your questions loaded. Put them to the test. Put their feet to the fire, guys. All right, that's my only suggestion. And
and all the ones that are hard on us, you gotta come in here and bring that fire and be hard on them. That's right.
Okay? King of Pugo,
because they're gonna see your comments.
And Nana, they're gonna see them. It's gonna be live. So make sure you guys are locked and loaded and ready to go. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. No softballs. All right. We want heat.
Yeah. So let them have it, and we look forward to it. And we'll talk to y'all soon.
See ya.